The movie begins in a prison where Officer Green is getting ready to deliver money to a high-profile inmate named Ballum. Even though Ballum is behind bars, he has a special setup. He lives in a private cell with personal guards and luxury items. From there, he runs his drug trade, human trafficking, and arms business. He chooses to stay in prison because it's the safest place for him, out of reach of his enemies. In the next scene, new prisoners arrive and are placed in the same building as Ballum. One of them is Jack, a former officer accused of killing another officer and robbing a bank. Before Jack can go to his cell, Officer Green stops him. Green hits him a few times, scolding him for killing a fellow officer and warning him that he won't last long in prison. The story then flashes back to a week earlier. Jack and some fellow officers had staged a bank robbery as part of a plan to gather evidence against Ballum and the corrupt officials running crime operations from the prison. After retrieving the evidence from the bank lockers, they tried to escape, but other officers stopped them. During the shootout, Jack's team was killed, and he was the only one who managed to escape. He ran into a building while officers chased him. When one officer confronted him and made threats, Jack recognized this officer as being involved in his wife's murder. Jack jumped off the building with the officer, killing him instantly in the fall but somehow surviving himself. He then left the evidence in the apartment of a reporter named Tricia and shared information with her about the corruption involving government officials and Ballum. He asked her to report it to the district attorney's office. Back in the present, Jack is now sharing a cell with another inmate, Silva. Later, during lunch, Ballum's cousin, Semyon, approaches Jack, demanding protection money. Jack refuses, and when Semyon and his men attack, Jack fights back. The fight ends with Semyon being caught by the guards and sent to solitary confinement. In the next scene, Jack is taken to a secure cell where he communicates with Ballum through security cameras. Ballum warns Jack to stay out of his business and says that if he doesn't, he'll end up dead, just like his wife. But Jack doesn't let the threat shake him. That night, 3 of Ballum's men enter Jack's cell to attack him. But Jack overpowers them without waking his cellmate, Silva. Meanwhile, Tricia is investigating the evidence Jack left and learns his real identity. The next day, after finding out more details, Tricia heads to the district attorney's office to meet with him. The receptionist tells her that the attorney is busy and suggests she leave the evidence with his assistant, Mark. But Tricia doesn't trust Mark. So she decides to leave without handing over the evidence. Later, Tricia waits outside the office until the attorney steps out. She approaches him and explains that she has evidence linking government officials and police to criminal activities. The attorney, Johnson, gives her his card and tells her to contact him if she needs more help. Patricia then visits Jack in prison and tells him she's working on the information he provided. Jack advises her to use it carefully before leaving the visiting room. Afterward, Jack is approached by a middle-aged inmate named William, who warns him to be careful around Ballum's men after what happened with Semyon. Jack replies that he isn't afraid of Ballum or Semyon, and he asks William about the location of Ballum's cell. William explains that Ballum's cell location is a secret, so hidden that even most prison guards don't know about it. In the next scene, we see a women's prison where 2 female inmates are fighting. As they struggle, the prison guards arrive and break up the fight. After the fight, one of the female prisoners, Elena, is taken to see Ballum with her head covered. She's brought before him, where Semyon and other prisoners are also present. Semyon and his men are there, collecting protection money without Ballum's permission, while Elena is there because she attacked one of Ballum's favorite female prisoners. Ballum then announces a $100,000 reward for anyone who can eliminate Jack. Right after this, prisoners team up and attack Jack while he's talking with William, but Jack and William use their skills and mana to defeat everyone. Meanwhile, Ballum gets a call from Attorney Johnson, who warns him that Tricia has evidence against him. Hearing this, Ballum orders Johnson to silence Tricia and plans to have Jack killed by the end of the day. Later, while Jack is doing his laundry, a group of prison guards arrives to claim Ballum's reward. They start beating Jack with batons, but Jack fights back and defeats them. As he leaves the laundry area, he's confronted by another group of prisoners. Before they attack, Jack tries reasoning with them, telling them the reward money won't be worth it and will be even smaller if they split it. Hearing this, the prisoners reconsider and walk away. Meanwhile, Tricia visits her friend Allison and shares everything about Ballum and the evidence she has against him and the officers working with him. In the next scene, Elena approaches Ballum's favorite female prisoner, Kat, to apologize for what happened, but Kat isn't interested in the apology and punches Elena in the face. Elena pretends to pass out, so the guards take her to the prison doctor. After the doctor examines her and leaves, Elena unlocks her handcuffs with a paperclip, steals some alcohol and medicines, and hides them in William's cleaning bucket. She then sneaks into an air vent with a tool to find the CCTV room. While crawling through the vent, she draws a map and finally finds the room. With William's help, she sneaks back to the medical room just in time. At the same time, Trisha visits Jack and tells him she's figured out his real background. She then asks him why he killed a fellow officer. Jack explains that Balaam's men killed his wife, and the officer he killed was part of that group. In the next scene, Jack learns that William isn't a real prisoner but an undercover officer. Jack is shocked and asks William how long he's been undercover. William explains it's been 6 months and says his main mission is to expose the corrupt prisoners and government officials working for Balaam. He also reveals that Elena is working with him to gather evidence hidden in the prison. While William is explaining this to Jack, other prisoners suddenly attack them and a fight breaks out. Later, Jack is thrown into solitary confinement, accused of starting the fight. While William is called to see Warden Blaine, since Blaine has had conflicts with Balaam's men before, he warns William to pay him more if he wants to keep doing his undercover work in the prison. Meanwhile, Trisha tries to meet with the district attorney again, but the receptionist tells her that Johnson is tied up with several meetings. Mark approaches Trisha again, pushing her to hand over the evidence. Meanwhile, Balaam's daughter comes to visit him, so Balaam is temporarily released from his cell and taken to the visiting room. As he exits, William notices and signals Elena to start their plan. Following William's instructions, Elena pretends to faint, and a guard takes her to the medical room. Once they're inside, Elena and William attack the guard. Elena then sneaks into the CCTV room, while William, disguised as a prison guard, heads to the control room. Watching the cameras, Elena sees Balaam leaving the visiting room. At that moment, William unlocks Jack's solitary cell, setting him free. Jack knocks out a guard and takes his uniform. William and Elena then tell Jack they'll guide him to Balaam's private cell before he returns. Soon after, Blaine and several guards realize someone has broken into the CCTV room. As they try to force their way in, Elena escapes through the ventilation ducts. Knowing time is running out before Balaam returns, William opens all the prison cell doors, causing chaos throughout the facility. Prisoners pour out of their cells, attacking guards who had mistreated them. Amid the chaos, Officer Green tries to escape but is stopped by Jack, who shoves him into a crowd of angry prisoners. At the same time, William and Elena fend off attacks from other prisoners. As Jack nears Balaam, he's confronted by Semyon, and the two engage in a fierce fight. Even though Semyon stabs Jack in the stomach, Jack overpowers him and continues toward Balaam's chamber. Meanwhile, we see that Allison has teamed up with District Attorney Johnson against Trisha, planning to kill her. Just before Allison can shoot, Mark steps in, revealing that he's an FBI agent. It turns out Mark has been working undercover as the prosecutor's assistant to expose Johnson's corruption and the misconduct of other government officials. Back at the prison, William takes down Warden Blaine and the remaining guards. Jack finally reaches Balaam and faces him in a one-on-one fight. Balaam gains the upper hand, knocking Jack to the ground. As Jack lies there helpless, he remembers his wife's murder at the hands of Balaam and his men, which gives him the strength to get back up. Jack ultimately overpowers Balaam, avenging his wife's death. Soon after, a SWAT team arrives and restores order in the prison. When the chaos ends, William introduces Jack and Elena to each other. William then tells them that his boss appreciates their help in dismantling Balaam's criminal network, both inside and outside the prison. Jack thanks William and Elena for helping him achieve his revenge. In the aftermath, the FBI arrests all the government officials and police officers involved with Balaam. The movie ends with Jack being taken into custody by William, who assures him he'll be released soon. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe for more content like this.